Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar sponsored by CLASS, the Center for Law and Social Policy, and FHI 360, Surviving to Thriving, Supporting Transformation, Reentry, and Connections to Employment for Young Adults. Today marks the first day for Second Chance Month, and we are thrilled to be able to share some resources with you and for you to hear from our dynamic presenters. Second Chance Month is a nationwide effort to raise awareness of the collateral consequences of incarceration. Next slide. Some housekeeping items before we begin. Please ask questions throughout the webinar presentation. You can use the questions feature on the control panel, and we will make sure to have questions at the end of the session to field from our panelists. I am Keisha Bird with CLASS, the Center for Law and Social Policy. And today I will be joined by Galen Demus, FHI 360, Franco Vega with the RightWay Foundation, Galen Demus with Kentuckiana Work, and Lukee Forbes with the City of Albany. The purpose of today's webinar is to lift up practical programmatic solutions that support second chances for young people and raise policy and systems considerations to address equity, collateral consequences, and opportunity. So to get us started, we'd like for you all to participate in a poll. So how many people live under the correctional control of the criminal justice system? This means in incarceration or detention, probation, or parole. Is it 2.2 million, 4.5 million, 6.7 million, 12 million? Please click on the answer you feel that best represents your vote. We'll give you a few seconds. Oh, okay. Looks like we have some people who maybe have read our paper. So for 45% of folks are saying there's 6.7 million people under the correctional control of the criminal justice system. So next slide. Let's see if they are correct. Yes, correct. So the why this is needed and why we really need to talk about second chances as well as to even celebrate a Second Chance Month is because 6.7 million people do live under the control of our criminal justice system. And 12 million people are booked each year in county jails. And we know that most people who cycle in and out of local jails are arrested for minor offenses and they are unable to afford bail. What's more, we also know that despite, next slide please, that despite young adults only representing 10% of the U.S. population, that 18 to 24-year-olds, they represent 21% of people admitted into adult prison every year. And we know that young people of color are more likely to face this cycle of incarceration and detention. So that's our why. So before I turn it over to Galen to share more about the Compass Rose Collaborative and the presenters, I want to direct you to read the full brief, Surviving to Thriving, which can be found on the CLASS website. And it has more detail and information than we will be able to share today on the webinar. Next slide. I also want to highlight that through our research and interviews with program leaders, we found best practices across 3 domains: youth development, workforce development, and reentry. And some of the themes were prioritize youth transformation and goals, maintain organizational partnerships, and work to remove systemic obstacles and barriers to youth success. Our presenters will address these themes in their remarks. Galen?
Thank you, Keisha. Next slide, please. So in talking about the best practices that this paper highlights, it talks about the Compass Rose Collaborative. The Compass Rose Collaborative is a Department of Labor funded project, and the overall goal of the collaborative is to increase equity and access to education and work for young adults between the ages of 18 to 24. Most of these individuals have been impacted by the justice system. And an overall goal of this project is to promote safer communities and break the cycle of crime by reducing recidivism. FHI 360 and 9 community organizations comprise the Compass Rose Collaborative. Partner organizations are listed here and include a diverse selection of communities that serve a diverse range of young people across many demographics. The collaborative also includes one rural community that brings an interesting perspective on best practices throughout the publication. Here on this slide, you can see the names of the organizations that partner with FHI 360 on this collaborative and read more about some of their best practices from their communities in the paper. And as was mentioned, FHI 360 serves as the intermediary organization. So the coordination of training, technical assistance, research, promotion of best practices, an evidence-based program model, and data, program, and fiscal reporting sits with FHI 360. FHI 360 also coordinates peer learning and exchanges across the communities to promote enhancing our strategies and building capacity for our entire collaborative. FHI 360 provides support to the communities to implement new promising practices and really enhance the programs and take them to another level. Here you will see that the grant outcomes are highlighted and listed and include a variety of participant and systems outcomes. At the end of this project, participants will be employed, at least 70% of them, or in long-term education or an apprenticeship program. Also, by the end of this project, we expect recidivism to be below 20% for these young people. And we also expect to contribute to the field as part of this project, and by that, securing employer partners that have committed to hiring young people, developing new resources, one of which is this publication that will be shared throughout the field and placed on the Department of Labor's Workforce GPS as a resource to communities, ensuring that our networks, including the communities collaborating to Reconnect Youth Network, will adopt and collaborate and use some of these best practices within their communities, and also ensuring that there are lots of curriculum opportunities and an apprenticeship opportunity for our young people to participate in. Here you can see our outcomes as of 9/30/19 with still a year left in the grant. As you can see, our communities have over-enrolled the required amount of young people to serve more young people throughout the nation, and that also 100% of our young people have received some type of supportive services to support them throughout the pathway to education and employment. You'll also note that 73% are already enrolled in long-term education or employed. 70% of participants have earned credentials, and there are over 100 employers committed to supporting second chances. I'd also like to highlight the recidivism rate for these young people in the program is less than 2%, which is a phenomenal number. I'd like to now turn it over to my colleague Franco to discuss some approaches used in Los Angeles. Franco?
Thank you, Caitlin, for the introductions. Once again, my name is Franco Vega. I'm Executive Director and founder of the RightWay Foundation located in South Central Los Angeles. We've been a part of the CRC and FHI 360 pilot grant for the past 3 years in partnership with the City of Los Angeles. City of Los Angeles was the grantee, and we're a sub of theirs. And let me explain to you briefly what the city does and how we play the partnership. You know, the City of LA, they focus specifically on construction during this piece, and they've been very successful. They had a construction training program that tied in physical fitness along with OSHA and CPR training, and then in partners with the local unions, labor unions, and carpentry unions or carpenters unions for placement. And so that's been a win-win partnership with the RightWay Foundation in the City of LA. I want to go into our program because our program is very unique. And then by the end of this 10-minute presentation, you guys can probably piece this together. We focus on a unique population, which is foster care youth. And the reason we focus in on foster care youth is because 80% of males rotting away in California State Prison come from the foster care system. So that's how we play this role. We didn't focus specifically on construction jobs. We focused in on everything else. We didn't want to recreate the wheel with the City of LA because they are really the experts in the construction training piece. So we focus in on other things like customer service. And then since we are in Hollywood, we focused a lot on film production and the film industry program. And our program is a 32-hour curriculum that each youth have to go through just to receive our services. So once again, I only have a couple of minutes to explain to you our 32-hour program. So I'm gonna go kind of fast. What I've done a couple of years ago was I tied in trauma-informed training into workforce development, meaning that all the youth we serve, we looked at their history and they come from some form of trauma. And what we found out, and what I found out personally, is you didn't need to be a mental health expert to recognize this and learn how to work with this population. So I merged the two programs together. So you don't have to go to one building for mental health services and you don't have to go to another building for employment services. I brought them all under one roof. And we call that program for this project Operation Second Chance. And we try to tie in what role does trauma play in job success for our population. And upon completion of the program, we guarantee them a paid training program, internship, or a paid job. At the end of the day, we have to give them something if they graduated from our program. Now, I'm gonna be brutally honest with you guys. Sometimes, a lot of times, 32 hours is just not enough to get over their healing. I don't wanna mislead anyone there. But it gets a start and it shows the youth or the participants how their trauma can play a role in their success and the success of their future while on the job. Next slide, please. In partnership with Operation Second Chance, we recognize that this is also helping remove barriers for the population we serve. And I'll give you a good example. When you come from trauma, a lot of the times you're more reactionary than to think stuff through. And let me give you a better example. You might be on a construction site and your foreman might say, go pick up that wood over there, and just give you a direct order, a military direct order. And our youth come from trauma are having flashbacks of being yelled at from the home they grew up in or the foster care system they grew up in, and they might just react. So that's what we talk about, teaching our youth how to deal with the trauma. We also have hired licensed clinical social workers, psychotherapists who have experience working with this population, and they lead these workshops. And we got to put the experts in front of these youth face to help them explain to them the trauma and things like that. We also took it a step further with removing barriers, working with folks who own real estate and developers. And you might say, why are you talking about now housing? 50% of foster youth that leave the system in LA County become homeless right away. When you're coming out of incarceration, you're almost homeless right away. 9 times out of 10, you're homeless right away. So that's when we partner with folks who will give our folks, our participants, a bed to live in, a roof over their head while we put them through our training. So I'll give you a good example. We give a CRC participant a home, but they have to go through our training. They have to report to construction training. They have to go to film production training. And we all play a vital role. So if they're absent one day, we know this right away and we can counsel that youth. We also take some of our funds and we provide the transportation, bus tokens, bus passes for our kids. Sadly, LA doesn't have the best public transportation system, and we notice this. And so we have to give them tools so they can become successful. We even teach them how to get their license. We do driver's ed, driver's training, and all that. Literally, our therapists and case management team use their own vehicles to conduct driving lessons and all that. After 6 months on the job, if they haven't saved up enough money to buy a used car, we offer interest-free car loans, no credit check, and we give them an automatic $2,000 to go buy them a used car. And that's been rewarding, and that's a pilot. And 5 youth have got this $2,000 grant or loan, loan, and they've been paying it 100% on time. Next slide, please. If you haven't read the From Surviving to Thriving paper that was written by Keisha, Caitlin, and Lisa Johnson, I encourage you guys to read it. It is the blueprint to work with this population. It's in there. Partnerships are key. We have tremendous partnerships that we're very fortunate to have, and we're very grateful and thankful. I look at this as a two-prong, meaning you got to service the youth, and then you have to service companies too. Both of them are our clients. And so we put our companies through a 5-hour trauma-informed workplace mentoring program, and we call that Operation Triple M, Motivate, Mentor, Manage. And once again, that's 5 hours. So you see the logos at the bottom of our screen: Cruise, AEG, TJ Maxx, Bloomingdale's, Macy's, and the SoFi Stadium, which is the new NFL headquarters in LA coming. They all have to go through our 5-hour training on trauma informed, because we want these folks, these supervisors, to recognize our population, and some of them are coming from trauma. And our companies have agreed with our model. They love our model because, and I'm brutally honest here, companies are not hiring our population to fire our population. Companies are hiring our population to promote our population, to keep them long term. I don't know not one company that wants to hire and fire our youth right away. So I'm very brutal and straightforward with that. And it's been win-win with our partnership, and all of them have agreed to go through our training. And if you can see this picture down below, that's about 10 managers going through our training about trauma informed. And once again, I say again, you do not have to be a mental health person to get this training. I have 25 years of experience, no mental health behind no education behind me in that role. But I have done my research. We get all of our training from Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, SAMHSA, Department of Health and Human Services, Jim Casey Youth Opportunity Initiative, the CDC, and then talking directly with our youth, direct clinical practice, and then Harvard Center for Developing Child. That's where I get all our information from. So I want to remind you guys, you don't have to be a mental health expert to implement this program. And then last, we have the PBS KCT link that has highlighted our work across the nation, and it's called Journey to Jobs, and it's only a 6-minute piece. So I encourage you guys to look at that. Next slide, please. How we support our young youth, basically, again, is focused on being trauma informed. Trauma informed is just really simple, recognizing that our kids come from trauma, and our job is not to create more trauma. Let's not put more barriers up in front of them that brings back trauma from their childhood. We continue supportive support after they graduate from our program. Even after they leave our system, we're there for them 24/7 by offering them flexible mental health services. They can call us anytime to receive therapy. Come into our office anytime to receive one-on-one therapy or group therapy. And then we're constantly training our companies on being trauma informed. We have built a system now that if a youth has a hiccup at work, that HR or managers will call us directly before they deal with our population, our youth, and then we can intervene and see what's going on. And give you another example, if a youth comes in twice back to back, 15 minutes late to work, and they have 4 months of never coming late to work, then we know that's a red flag. And we have the capabilities to jump in right away and talk to youth and figure out what's going on behind the scenes. So I know I was quick, only had 10 minutes, but I want to go back to the paper. And in the paper, they focus in on 10 points or 10 bullets about how to prioritize youth transformation and goals. RightWay Foundation I just focused in on number 4, number 5, number 7, and number 8. And I know some of you guys haven't read the paper yet, but I focused in on staff and mentor, pre-release services, mental health and well-being, education, training, and work experience. And I'm sorry, on pre-release services, we do partner and go into probation camps, and we meet the youth before they're released. We have a direct relationship with probation officers where they'll call me on my cell or call the office and say, I want you to meet these 5 new guys we're about to release. We think they're awesome, they're motivated, they're ready to go. We don't want to see them back in our camps. So I skipped over that pre-release services, but that's also very important. And I want to turn it over to my man, Galen from Kentucky, Louisville. Galen, it's yours.
Thank you, Franco, and great work you guys are doing out there with RightWay in LA. Got to see it firsthand. Good afternoon, everybody. Galen Demus is my name, career coach, team lead, the Reentry program, Louisville, Kentucky. A little background on what I do there is work with and give direction to our 3 Reentry program career coaches to achieve program goals and outcomes, as well as working to establish and maintain strong community partnerships that benefit our grant objectives and our participants. And I do this under the direction of our Reentry program director, Ms. Demetra Suazo. Next slide. Our grantee, Kentuckiana Works, that organization, they are a workforce development board, helping job seekers find jobs, career options, education and training in the Louisville metropolitan statistical area and several surrounding counties. They also help employers meet their workforce needs by connecting them with skilled, qualified employees. This is a value-added benefit to our programs and services because of the partnerships they have created with a number of established training programs. And also it gives our program direction in real time to prepare our young adults to take advantage of these trainings, in these areas of employment. Next slide. So what does our program have to offer? The Kentucky Youth Career Center is a partner youth organization we are housed with. We call them KYCC. And KYCC provides educational and career opportunities and job search help for Louisville youth ages 16 to 24. KYCC is the actual physical space for the Reentry program. What is the Reentry program? We are a partnership with Kentuckiana Works and the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. And Reentry works with young adults 16 to 24, 90% who have been touched by the court system. Reentry started in 2015 as a collaboration between the mayor of Louisville, the chief of police, and the then director of the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, a gentleman named Anthony Smith, as part of the anti-youth, anti-violence initiative in the city of Louisville. With that, part of the charge for us has been to provide assistance in the following areas on the next slide. We can help with our participants getting career pathway trainings and credentials, help our participants find a job or start their career path, help our participants earn their GED or enroll in college, navigate the court system, assist with transportation and work school uniforms, help our participants with legal aid, housing for the homeless, counseling, and more of what I'll tell you in some of the slides coming up. Next slide. So in Surviving to Thriving, it identified 10 categories of best practices under 3 areas really needed to make a change in the lives of the population that we work with. They were previously mentioned, but they were prioritize youth transformation and goals, maintain organizational partnerships, and work to remove systemic obstacles and barriers for youth success. Now, our Reentry program, I know that we touch on, and we're strategic and intentional with really all 10 categories that are listed. But as an example, for one of the areas cited in the report, removing systemic obstacles that pose barriers to our participants' success, An area we've been successful in is really providing a variety of training options, opening up those perceived closed doors that our participants sometimes feel. So we have established strong career pathways with construction, manufacturing, IT and youth development, along with construction and manufacturing, were part of our original 4 pathways when this grant started with us in 2018. Since that time, we have been able to add and get our young adults in some of these other areas for career pathways, including culinary, welding, CNA, a recent graduate out of phlebotomy training. All of this has been really possible, and what has made a huge difference in the success has been the proactive approach with FHI 360 and the CRC grant to assist us for funds with stipends and incentives for the participants. That has really been the tipping point in part for those systemic obstacles that they face getting into some of these trainings. Along with that, career coaches. So the 3 career coaches I mentioned, I got them there by name. What we do in our one-to-one case management is the career coaches become the experts in 2, 3 of the fields above and become the program liaison for the participant and their success. Kind of removing that barrier that a lot of our participants may have in regards to trust, in regards to maybe not being familiar, not hearing things from those that may not know them and some of the things that they're going through in a way that they truly understand that may cause them to back off. Our career coaches are there to move them forward and be a positive influence to them. Along with those best practices, we also are proactive with our own in-house trainings, like customer service and ServSafe training with our in-house training specialists at our program location, which leads into the next slide. How do we mitigate barriers? So we mitigate the barriers by utilizing our in-house resources and areas of expertise to remove or not make the barrier so challenging is one way. So in our physical space, which is a haven for a lot of our young people, a go-to place for a lot of our young adults. If the barrier is transportation, we can supply bus tickets for them to get to and from work, a monthly bus pass with some goals that they achieve to get that, ID, birth certificate. Our career coaches can help with both of those. Getting an ID, there's a place close by the DMV that they're able to go to and potentially provide some assistance with funds. We have somebody who actually goes to our state capitol about an hour away once a month for replacement birth certificates. We have a food closet in our physical space. The regional partner for us, their name is Dare to Care. So it's a place that our participants can come to and know they can get a snack or get what may be their meal for the day, but they know that our physical space is a haven for that. No computer that they have. We have a computer lab that gives computer lab access for them, or also lets them just, if it's no more than plugging up their phone to charge their phone. Again, this physical space being a safe haven as an in-house resource. Housing, we have a housing for the homeless case manager who's been on for a couple months now, doing a great job of being able to walk our participants from the start with application to getting them to Z with what may be potential housing and coming out of that crisis. And relaxation, we also have a book closet in our physical space. So just along with all these things, we know that most of our participants are in or come to us in crisis mode. So something again in that physical space to make sure that we're covering all the wraparound resources that we can. Next slide. And if we don't have on the spot in-house resources, we collaborate with our community partnerships for some of the other challenging barriers like trauma, mental health. We partner with the University of Louisville, an outfit they have, Cardinal Success Counseling, for our young adults and participants. That's confidential. Substance abuse, we work with various rehab centers, both clinical and holistic, and let them be the experts for maybe some of those things that we may not be equipped for, that our young adults need assistance in. Probation and parole, we try to remove that as a barrier by having a positive referral relationship with them through a lot of success stories and evidence-based outcomes we can show when they send the individuals to us from probation and parole. And when our individuals, when our young participants have an issue with little work experience as a barrier, we have programs and partnerships we work with that are specific for entry-level jobs, so that we are at least starting them with experiences to move them forward. And with that, I'm going to move this to one of our participants, Lukee Roberts. He's next up.
How you doing? My name is actually Lukee Forbes. I'm a participant of Compass Rose. I'm actually currently the office manager of the Youth Opportunity Office, and I'm also the administrative assistant in the Summer Youth Employment Program. As well, I'm also one of the coordinators for the OSEA program. Now, I was able to get to these positions through the Compass Rose program, through the training that they offered me. I was released July 5th of 2018, and I was actually connected with Compass Rose in March of 2019. So literally, I've just been with this program going over a little over a year now, and it has already helped me elevate to this point where this is my day job. I just recently graduated from Albany Can Code thanks to Compass Rose and the WIOA grant, where I was able to undergo that taking, and I graduated as a front-end web developer, where I've actually gained those skills. Compass Rose has basically helped me grow through the education that they provided me with, other trainings and resources that they provided me with. They also introduced me to the Mixers training, which taught me how to really get better at Excel and Access, which we actually do a lot of the database uses for the City of Albany's program, especially for our Summer Youth Employment Program, and keeping information and just filing documents. I didn't really have those skills before prison, but after being released and with Compass Rose, I was able to actually get those skills and be able to add those to my repertoire and really build my resume. And not only am I able to build my resume through Compass Rose and also helping participants that come in, I'm able to actually help build other people's resume. I didn't mention it before, but I also work closely with Compass Rose. I work closely with the two counselors within my personal office, the Youth Opportunity Office out in Albany. And with them, I'm actually able to help take in participants where I actually do the intake process. And one of the good best practices that we do when we do the intake process is we actually allow them to actually be a part of building their goals and really setting in what they are going to do moving forward. I know with me personally, that actually helped because it made me actually identify and also be an advocate and really participate in growing myself. Also working with Compass Rose, not only have they allowed me to grow by helping take people in, also allowing me the free range to see how I can be a part of helping develop the program itself. I'm also trying to work on a grant with Epic Video Games. They actually give out a Mega Million grant each year, which they give out $100 million to organizations. And I want to also bring that into Compass Rose, just to bring it into our office, just to bring it a little further by offering us to be able to use that database, Unreal, which is basically a database where we can teach kids how to build video games. And I know people coming home developing the skill and other computer skills like opening code that I did will actually help people develop in that way. Another few things that Compass Rose has helped me develop in was also just being able to speak with people and further articulate myself. I know a lot of the participants there, when we talk to them, it is very important that we learn how to talk to people and really get personable and really help them understand that we are people here for them as well. And those are a few things that I've personally done with compass roles. I'm just going to pass it on now back to the moderator.
Thank you, Lukee. Thank you, Franco, Galen, and Caitlin. I think hopefully you heard what I heard, which was a combination of a lot of things. One, about that these programs really make a difference in the lives of young people and personal transformation, that it's beyond programs, but it's about systems connections. It's about how do we use program best practices to push policies and investments. How do we think about cities and workforce development boards and agencies and community-based organizations and young people working together to improve opportunities, second chances, more chances, as well as sometimes a first chance for our young people? And so I want to thank you all for your powerful presentations, for the leaders that you are, the work that you're doing in your community. So what's next? We are focusing on rebuilding and restoration, and you heard that from all of the presenters. And as one of the program leaders shared, it takes time to move the needle of systemic oppression. So the Compass Rose Collaborative and the best practices that we've outlined today and in the paper are a step in the larger process of reimagining our criminal justice system, to make it a justice system. And that requires moving towards large-scale investment in decarceration, creating more opportunities like the ones we heard today through Compass Rose, and focusing on restorative justices, not only in our programs, but also in our policies. So next slide, please. So some of the policy and systems considerations outlined in the paper, and once again, we encourage you to take a look at the paper to see what some of those are in full detail. We heard that identification is access, and we need to ensure that individuals returning from incarceration or detention receive state-issued identification. Quoting from The Atlantic, we know this can be the key to post-incarceration life that is filled with possibilities instead of roadblocks. We heard about cross-systems coordination and approaches, including but not limited to with workforce systems, employers, criminal justice, probation, parole, health, mental health. As an example, flexibility in use of resources, stipends, and other ways that community-based organizations and local systems really need to be able to manage and support the various obstacles that young people are facing. This is really key, removing employment barriers. We know there's so many collateral consequences, and they're well documented, such as re-examining state occupational licensing bans, working with human resources departments to identify better employment practices. And we heard a little bit about some of those highlights. Alignment with corrections and community education. You know, lots of this work begins before people come home. And so how can we make sure we have resources, both public and private, that facilitate that? And then a lot of what we heard about today, and again, encourage you to look at some of the details in the paper, is really about supportive services access. This includes access to benefits such as Medicaid, removing housing bans and ensuring there is housing, focusing on mental health and behavioral health and substance abuse support as an example. So now we want to move, we have some time, next slide, for you to ask questions. And so we already have some, but again, please use the chat function or feature so that we can have some time for questions with our panelists. So we already have some that's come in throughout the webinar, and I'll actually start with what I know is on so many people's minds. Right now we're experiencing a global pandemic, a public health crisis, and an economic crisis with the coronavirus or COVID-19. So the question is, and Franco, if you can start, and then we'll go to Galen, and then also Lukee, how have your programs responded to the COVID crisis now that we know that young people can't convene in many places. And then also, there was a specific question around mental health and how that is potentially exacerbated because of the crisis. So Franco, if you can jump in briefly, and then Galen, and then Lukee.
Yeah, Franco here once again. So sadly, all of the jobs, mostly all the jobs, customer service and things like that, all of our youth have been laid off or affected. We do a lot of hiring at LAX, the airport. All those jobs have been laid off. So, but on a positive note, we've been working with the CEOs of these companies and helping behind the scenes push through that stimulus for a lot of our youth to make sure that they can obtain some of the stimulus package that is coming down the pipeline is one. That's been hard. Second, on the mental health part, yeah, just flashbacks of being all alone have been coming in back for our youth as far as trauma goes. And so we've been providing intense one-on-one therapy via cell phone and using Zoom and things like that. So we've been technology savvy now, brought up to speed with the rest of America of how to use our Zoom, FaceTime, and all that. So that's the plus. But a lot of our youth are lonely right now at this time, and that's been hard on staff and youth. And then the homeless has been very hard too. A lot of our kids were homeless before this, and now they're really stuck out there. So we've just been thinking outside the box with FHI 360 and providing them gift cards to like Target and Walmart, so they can still have some kind of support and some necessities they need to buy. They have access to that right now at this time.
Galen?
It's been tough. We're still, we've been knocked for a loop, but again, looking for those silver linings. So heavy case management from our career coaches and case managers with our participants. Still hearing them out, still letting them know, even though that physical space that I talked about in the programs and so much being shut down across the board, that we're still there for them, and keeping that hope going that when things get back up and running, that we'll get back on track as best we can. Along with that, we are getting out to them as many community resources that we know are available. Things about COVID-19, things about applying for unemployment, things about where there may be some employment opportunities in the area, and where they can go in regards to what may be homeless shelters or food banks. And then folks trying to be innovative. There's some things that some participants in the Reentry program and the Kentucky Youth Career Center program have done that had to do with a Facebook group that they started. So getting that information out to all of our participants to kind of help at least have some kind of foundation or something they can at least hold on trying to climb up that ladder, that maybe that support out there, or something that they may hear from somebody else in their peer group through that Facebook page that they have, to at least, as we're all going through things with that. We're working on being as proactive as we can with getting a lot of programs online, getting trainings online, getting webinars, online and out there in some podcast or Zoom form that we're moving forward on.
Thank you. Lukee, can you share how you all are responding in your role and with the city to young people who are right now in crisis?
So our youth basically have been out of school for 3 weeks, and it had placed a big hindrance on us releasing our summer youth employment program that a lot of kids rely on. Not only that, a lot of kids also rely on the school lunches and things like this. During this crisis, it hasn't really been hard for us to keep getting those resources out to kids, because we have a really good, strong, impacted community that stick together and make sure that our kids are provided with at least the school lunches, resources to things like tissue, cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer, because those things are out of stock in stores. And it really is a big thing. Like Franco said, a lot of the people who were working as customer service, those jobs are being laid off right now. And it is affecting our community, but our community is still sticking together, and our office is actually still trying to engage with our youth. We're actually switching our application over to online application so we can continue with the summer youth program after the pandemic is over, and we can still get these kids employed. Like I said, we're still trying to make sure that our kids are fed throughout the lunch times, make sure foods are delivered to houses that can't actually get out, because it's affecting the whole community as a whole. Our unemployment rate, I believe, is up to 30%. That's a really high number, and it's really just sticking together and making sure that we stay focused. As also on my personal Facebook and things like that, I share classes to Albany Can Code. Like I said, I went there myself, and they're doing free classes for kids to teach them basically how to build video games and also how to code HTML and CSS so that they can continue to learn while they're at home. Other programs such as Mission Accomplished, another program that I worked with, another one, Pulse, we're still out there. We're still providing these webinars for learning experiences and things like that through Facebook and other social media outlooks, other websites, and we're still interacting with, even with our OCA program, our after school program, we're still interacting with our youth through Zoom, because at these times where the kids are bored and they really don't have too much to do, we don't want them to really go through the trauma that they can go through, because this is a real traumatic experience. They're seeing people outside with masks. The news is really telling people that it's getting worse and worse every day. It's really getting chaotic. They're shutting down cities. We don't need our young kids to really focus in on that. We want them to really look forward to the bright side when this is all over with. It is going to be something that we have to get used to in these moments, and something that we have to prepare to actually get out of, which is what we're basically, that's basically what we've been doing. Sorry if I've been too, I know.
No, thank you. Thank you. That was a lot of what I heard was innovation and creativity. And for those of you who are listening, I know lots of you are doing some of the same things. And so, Classroom invites you to share some of those with us as we all try to advocate on behalf of young people and communities. Some more questions that have come in. And Franco, I'll direct this to you. Two parts. One is about billing mechanisms, potentially to support peer support facilitators. If you explored that, and then also, are you considering expanding your trauma informed and healing training to additional employers?
No to the first question. Yes to the second question. Any company or all companies that partner and hire our youth, we prefer they go through our program, our trauma-informed training. And it's been win-win, because you don't per se have to come out of the foster care system or come out of prison to be affected with trauma. Veterans are affected with trauma. Going through a divorce comes with trauma, and things like that. A death in a family comes with trauma. So it's been win-win with our approach to sell this to corporate America. So that's the move. Once we open back up the country, I don't think RightWay is going to partner with no other company that doesn't go through our program, because at the end of the day, what everyone has created here through this collaboration with CRC and FHI 360 is to make sure our youth don't go back to jail and go back to prison. And if you haven't dealt with trauma, you might end up back there. And if you're a company that creates more trauma, might lead the youth back to prison. So that's our motto. And we look forward to when we open back up this company, every company will go through this trauma-informed training.
Thank you. And Galen, let me turn it over to you. There were a couple of questions about how do you get employers on board, and what are some tips that you all are using, especially, you know, focused on this young adult population.
Repeat that for me, Keisha. I'm sorry. The second
Yes,
part, how do we get employers on
how do
board?
you get employers on board to as a partner, and what are some tips you can share?
Okay. So a couple of ways that we get employers on board. One is through, again, with the Kentuckiana Works and their pull in the community with that. Along with that, the Kentucky Youth Career Center, we have an in-house workforce development person who works across all kind of areas of employment. And from there, their contacts, and they set up, you know, employee fairs. Again, a lot of this that can be done in our facility, and also a lot of our youth or young adults participants in the program. They're on an email mailing list that when this workforce development person gets job leads, she can just shoot it out to them as a step for connecting with employers, as well as the things that we have, you know, in-house with trainings to make sure that they're prepared. Another way is because of the reputation of our program that we've built. We do have a good in with a number of employers as far as the Reentry program and what we built with being upfront that, hey, these are second chance individuals. You know, they're going to need, I'm not going to say a little more leeway, but you're going to have to go in there, try to understand that, let's try to meet them where they're at. And that's how you're going to find that gem, with understanding, you know, where they come from and some of the things we're talking about, you know, as far as trauma or maybe not having certain experiences. There's a good track record with our program in working with employers who know about our program for the participants we're able to provide.
Thank you, Galen. Anything you want to add, Franco, to tips around maintaining employer partnerships, getting them on board? You already shared about your training, but anything you want to add?
Oh, definitely. You remember, folks, if you're doing job placement at the end of this rainbow, you have to treat the companies like your clients too. You got to show up for the companies. You got to provide excellent customer service for the companies also. So once you start building that relationship and they have job openings, you'll get those calls and they'll call you first, and then you know you have a solid relationship. And when you start off with these new companies, you know, make sure you're sending them the ones that are ready to go right away, because you got to build a relationship. So you want to hit out the box running fast with successful youth. And then you might have some hiccups, but let's not have hiccups right away. So if I send 10 youth and one has a hiccup, that company's calling me back because they understand it's just one hiccup. But if you send 10 youth and you have 9 hiccups, then you might not get a call from that company no more. So remember, you have 2 clients. Now I'm just talking as a CEO. You have your youth as a client, and then you have those companies as a client. And you have to provide the same services to each one, always showing up and delivering. And remind them you can act as an extension of their human resource, you know, to help them out. And so and show them and use the data. By keeping long-term employees, you're saving the company money. I know for a fact it costs $3,500 to hire one participant, along with the background check, the drug test, the trainings, and all that. You know, that costs about $3,500. So we show the companies, look, we don't want to keep hiring new folks.
Great. And so, Lukee, we're going to turn this over to you. We have a couple of questions for you. And we know we're nearing the end of the webinar, so wanted to leave you with sharing one, how has your participation as a program participant allowed you to help advance and improve the program, as well as, we're turning over to Lukee now, as well as how were you recruited or found out about the Compass Rose program in Albany?
All right. So one, me being a participant of the program at first, I was able to basically see how it is to go through the program and just get the feel of being one of the participants, just someone on the other side that needed a program to go through it. And then joining on the other side, I was able to actually add input like, hey, maybe we should add this, maybe we should add that. And it wasn't really even any big things. Like I'm just trying to basically, I built a conversation with the district attorney's office in Albany where I want to connect further with them and things like that. I've also had conversations with other companies to basically work with them and things like that to basically bring them into our Compass Rose collaboration just so that we can build other partners and partnerships. I also through working with the program and learning how to just develop things and build things, I also worked on a business 101 where I teach basically people who want entrepreneur skills, basically the steps that they would need to go through, like basically building a business and how they will go about doing that. And the second question, can you repeat the second question one more time, please?
Yes, you talked to us about in your story about how you found out about Compass Rose program. You can share that again.
So how I found out about Compass Rose was basically when I got released from prison back in July of 2018, July 5th, 2018. My first job was working with Red Lobster, and they weren't giving me any hours at all. And then my second job I got was working at McDonald's, and I was like the oldest person there. And I'm only 25. I was 24 at the time. I actually started having a conversation with my general manager there because she was actually trying to fix the public image of the store. And me learning the things that I learned when I was in prison, I actually decided to go ahead and try to make a program with her. And she actually ended up sponsoring me, and I brought a few things under a program named Save the Youth out to basically stop the violence, peace march and rally on Clinton Avenue. It happens June 29th, 2018. But before that ended up happening, me trying to promote it, I ended up going to the Department of Labor and I stumbled upon the WIOA grant. And that's how I basically met Stephanie Barrett, who is a Compass Rose staff, and she actually brought me into Compass Rose, and that's how I became a participant of Compass Rose.
Thank you, Lukee. Wonderful story. And again, as you hear from Lukee's story, the work that Galen's doing, Franco, and all the other Compass Rose partners, you hear that it requires lots of commitment, lots of resources. And Lukee mentioned a couple of times WIOA. That's the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It's a federal investment that goes to states and local communities, and it really is critical and important in facilitating many of the types of opportunities we talked about, as well as discretionary grant resources through the Department of Labor. So it's a federal investment, it's local and state policies, as well as community-based organizations and young people all working together with employers to make these opportunities possible. We have a number of questions that we did not address, and we have those questions. We will, you can contact us to ask those questions, and we will try our best to answer them. We thank you for joining us today. Policy makers and practitioners can use the information shared today in the webinar and in our brief to increase equity and access to jobs and education and pathways to post-secondary education, and for young people in need of another chance. These strategies mean that we need to invest in them and into young people to support dismantling structural barriers and help young people on their life journey, not ours, but their life journey. This is about supporting them and making sure policy and programs dismantle barriers and not create them. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you, and have a wonderful day.